Okay, that works. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Greg Novak, Chair of CAMPO, starting with our call to order of our meeting of May 14th, 2025. Can I have the roll call, please?
Chair Novak,
Here.
Vice Chair Maloney.
Here.
Member Bagwell. Member Castanelli.
Here.
Member Dodson.
Here.
Member Erb.
Here.
Member Schutte.
Here.
Ex officio Member Capeller.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All righty, thank you. We'll get back to our agenda. Item number 3 is our first opportunity for public comment. Do we have any folks in the audience that need to speak up at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to item number 4, possible action approval of our minutes of the April 9th, 2025 meeting. Any questions or comments or feedback from the folks?
Move approval as presented. Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes approved unanimously. Okay. Item number 5, our special presentation proclamation. And Scott, were you going to come up at all on this one? Or I know I'll be reading it, I guess.
Yeah, it's Scott Bohemier, Safe Routes School Coordinator for Carson City. We just wanted to do a bike proclamation to bring awareness to everybody that it's Bike Month, and we have a lot of different events going on through town, Bike to School Day, different things like that. So we just wanted to bring that awareness out to the public and do the proclamation.
All righty. I have it here and I've signed it and I will read it into the record. I guess that is the custom. Any other comments you want to add at this point?
Sure. For the record, my name is Chelsea Kinchlow. I'm president of the board for Muscle Powered, our local advocacy group here in Carson City for a walkable, bikeable community. And as Scott said, it is May Bike Month. We've been hosting a series of events. Our next upcoming one is a Bike to Work Day on Friday, May 16th. And we will actually be having volunteers out doing bike and pedestrian counts in certain locations throughout the community. So on South Solomon at the Fremont School, on South Carson, on North College Parkway where the multi-use path is, and then at Mills Park as well. We'll have counters out looking for people out commuting to work. Thank you.
Good. I think we're all interested in how much biking actually goes on because we've been given it a lot of consideration and investment. And if the weather would cooperate.
Talk about the tour of Carson on the bike. Talk about, that was 30 miles of wind and rain and cold, but there was a good crowd.
Good, good. All right, I will read our proclamation of Bike Month. Whereas biking is an essential form of transportation, recreation, and physical activity that promotes health, sustainability, and community vitality, and whereas the Carson Area MPO recognizes the importance of bicycle transportation in reducing traffic congestion, improving air quality, and enhancing the overall quality of life for all residents, and whereas May is recognized nationally as Bike Month, an opportunity to celebrate the many benefits of bicycling and to encourage more people to give biking a try. And whereas the Carson Area MPO is committed to creating safe, accessible, and enjoyable conditions for bicyclists of all ages and abilities through infrastructure improvements, public education, and community programs. And whereas community organizations, schools, public agencies, and businesses throughout Carson City, Lyon County, and Douglas County will host activities and events that promote bike safety, education, and the joy of bicycling. And whereas biking supports the shared goals of fostering active lifestyles, reducing environmental impacts, and building a stronger, more connected community. Now, therefore, I, Greg Novak, Chair of the Carson Area MPO, do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Bike Month in the CAMPO region, and I encourage all residents to ride their bicycles, be mindful of bicyclist safety, and participate in the Bike Month activities throughout our community. All righty, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sure, I got to read all this stuff.
So everyone should go onto the floor and do a picture. Let me, or even if you, well, I can't. But everybody else might be able to stand behind. If I stand behind, no one will see me. I'll laugh and go, no, that won't work. Any one of you would cover me up. Definitely not on the 16th. I don't want to do a proclamation. Tower everybody.
It's probably okay to walk during Bike Month too. Get on the path. All righty. We've got that. Next one. We're on to agenda item 6A. Kelly Norman, it's for possible action, so we'll take some public comment. Discussion and possible action regarding amendment number 1 to the Carson Area MPO Unified Planning Work Program, UPWP, for fiscal year 25 and 26, which makes various revisions to the UPWP and its work elements and increases the budget by $365,650 to account for the carry forward of unused fiscal 25 funds to fiscal 26, additional federal consolidated planning grant funds, and increases in other federal and local funds. All right, Ms. Norman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelly Norman, Senior Transportation Planner. So the CAMPO Unified Planning Work Program outlines the tasks that staff are responsible for between the fiscal years 2025 and 2026. This amendment's being presented to the board to account for the updated consolidated planning grant funds from the FTA and FHWA and carries forward the unused funds, as you mentioned, from the previous year. So staff has updated federal planning emphasis areas and some work element completion dates. Exhibit 1 reflects all UPWP edits and inclusions for fiscal year 2026 in red. The budget for the fiscal year 2026 UPWP consists of $1,289,549 in consolidated planning grant funds, the $305,000 in other federal local funds, which include the TAP funds for the US 50 Complete Streets and the local funds for the North Carson Complete Streets feasibility study, which will be starting very soon. $53,260 in required local match. The local match summary with the explanation of the fiscal impact on the staff report shows the local match responsibility of each participating local agency, Carson City, Douglas, and Lyon. A 30-day public comment period was open from April 1st through May 1st. No public comments were received. I'll be happy to take comments or questions.
I think, buzzing through the exhibit here, I saw where the changes were from, my point of view. The focus is finishing the update of the regional transportation plan and then doing some of the complete streets and all your other normal activities. And I don't really have any problems with it. It looks like we're going to be addressing more vulnerable road users in a more explicit manner. And for some of these things that are coming with, US DOT, Federal Highways, or FTA guidance, be prepared for some changes regardless of what we're approving today. Because things seem to be in flux and it's hard to predict. but I think you guys are responding quite well to everything that comes out officially and keeping track of what's unofficial too. A lot of talk on
Understood.
that. Yep,
A tree that doesn't bend breaks.
yes,
Yes.
sure.
Hi, thank you. This isn't one of the changes, but I was just wanting to ask on activities 4.1, the transit planning, page 46 or document 30. In there, it talks about the task also includes coordination with local Native American tribal communities to seek ways to broaden transportation to poorly served areas. But I was just wondering, what are some of the outreach mechanisms to the tribal communities?
Thank you for asking that question. So staff reach out to our contact, the Tribal Roads Director for the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, who is Kenneth Cruz. And we just recently have coordinated with him to set up a meeting to talk about the Regional Transportation Plan and the Coordinated Human Services Plan, which is the long-term transit plan. We'll be talking to the tribal community and anyone who Kenneth believes would be important to talk to in the community. And if invited, we can also talk to the tribal committee as well. We're also meeting with them about the Curry Complete Streets study and other studies and try to coordinate with them through Kenneth as much as possible.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments for Kelly at this point? Okay, I guess I'll entertain a motion.
Public comment.
Oh, yes, I forgot, public comment. Said that earlier. Do we have any public comment on this first action item? Come up, please, and state your comments, 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Costa, Carson City resident. I understand perfectly well that the main focus of this UPWP is going to be the Regional Transportation Plan and working on that area. I was wondering if some of the funds can be used in staff planning, roads that are not part of the federal network, local roads for that matter, if we can use some of that to plan and how we're going to go ahead and maintain and repair those roads and expand them as necessary. Thank you.
Do we have any more public comment for this item? All righty.
I will make a
Yes.
motion. I move to approve the amendment as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 6B. And Chris, you're going to be covering this.
Disclosure. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict and will be voting on this matter.
Okay, and the agenda title is Discussion and Possible Action Regarding a Recommendation to the Carson City Board of Supervisors concerning the fiscal year 2026 budget for the Carson Area Metropolitan Organization Fund. Okay, Chris, you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager.
This item is to review CAMPO's budget, which is administered through an interlocal agreement with the Carson City Finance Department. And so each year, CAMPO staff coordinate with Carson City Finance to prepare the budget and the associated budget worksheets, which are included on packet pages 66 and 67 of your packet. You can see here related to packet page 66, the farthest column on the right of that, which is titled 2026 budget, is the estimated budget available for CAMPO in fiscal year 26, which begins July 1st. $759,966 in federal grants. This is our consolidated planning grant funds that we receive from the Federal Transit Administration, the Federal Highway Administration through NDOT on an annual basis. Below that are local match amounts for Douglas County and Lyon County, which are similar to the items listed on the previous item 5A for their local match. Carson City is listed there as on the line item called Reg Transportation Fund at $18,605. So the total revenue is brought in. There's a beginning fund balance as well, which is programmed in there from finance. And then the total revenue is $818,000, which matches the total expenditures of $818,000, which is the last line on the page in that column. CAMPO is a relatively straightforward budget. There's the UPWP federal grant, and then the local match. Occasionally, we do have other funding sources, things like US 50 Phase 2 corridor study, which is other funds outside the UPWP, and those get captured in this budget as well. And you can see those line items there in previous fiscal years. Those are the main highlights that I was going to note on this budget, but if there are particular questions, the recommendation would be to the Board of Supervisors, to Carson City Board of Supervisors, who, as I said, administers the fund as part of the city's budget.
Okay, are there any questions from CAMPO board here?
Yeah, I'll have one.
Questions?
Sorry. More just looking at the 2025 actual column and trying to figure out, and this is actuals. Oh, with the re-estimate though. So how do you have an actual that has Medicare retirement, group insurance, and expenses, and then re-estimating zeros? Was that a journal entry or something that had to be done to correct?
Yeah,
'Cause I'm like,
when
how do I have all that? And then it's gone. It poofed.
Thank you, Member Packwell. Those are the grants. It's a reimbursement grant, so we don't. Once we incur the cost, we seek reimbursement from NDOT for those funds, and so the actuals are what we've received, obviously, to this point, and so we'll true up those at the end of the fiscal year for the re-estimate. But those are costs associated with us charging time on this grant and billing that and being paid those portions reimbursed back from NDOT. They're not. They don't. The money doesn't go away if that was.
I guess I'm just trying to understand, is the salary then actually just charged here initially and then reversed when we receive reimbursement and
It's
put in a
not.
different fund? Because I'm trying, I can't track here. Usually I'm pretty good at this.
Well, I'm not sure exactly how finance goes through and redoes this particular budget. Each year is
Do we have
associated with the
staff
reimbursement.
assigned that's charged? Don't we have staff time?
We do not have
Oh,
staff time associated with this.
No staff time.
No,
so
there is
the
nobody.
actual's the issue.
Nobody is budgeted in the CAMPO fund. It's
Right.
only a reimbursement once staff charge time to it.
Okay, thank you.
And we're capped at 696,504. That's what our agreement with NDOT for fiscal year 25 says. And so we can't increase that without amending the agreement.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before I go to public comment? Okay. Any members of the public that want to weigh in on this item before we take action? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Okay. I move to recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the fiscal year 2026 budget for the CAMPO Fund.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. All righty.
I get to read again.
Okay. Next item, 6C, again for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding an interlocal agreement with Lyon County for the CAMPO to manage $1,254,000 in surface transportation block grant funding on behalf of Lyon County, subject to a 5% local match of $66,000 to be paid by Lyon County for a feasibility study for a future Dayton Valley Chaves Road Bridge project, with CAMPO staff assuming primary administrative responsibilities for study management and administering the STBG funds. And 2, authority for the transportation manager to sign the agreement, as well as future amendments extending the term of the agreement. Mr. Martinovich?
Oh, wait, I first have a disclosure again. My nephew, Chris Martinovich, is the city staff presenter on this item. My disclosure and analysis from item 6B applies here as well. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his city service, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other Carson City resident. Therefore, I have no disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting.
Okay. And Chris, this project's been around in the regional transportation plan for a while, and it looks like we're finally moving forward with it, so.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This item, the first item I want to address is the name of the road. Commissioner Casanelli, forgive me, I'm going to go with Chavez Road. It's been long debated internally at
Yeah.
staff.
I was gonna ask that. Which way?
Do you,
It actually is Chaves.
is it Chaves?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people pronounce it Chavez or Chavs,
Okay.
but it's Chaves.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that.
Good guess.
Thank you. This item is to allow CAMPO to administer on behalf of Lyon County $1.2 million in surface transportation block grant or STBG funds that are apportioned to CAMPO on an annual basis for the Shaves Road Bridge project. This will be primarily a feasibility study type of project, analyzing where the best location of the bridge will go, where the roadway connections need to go, what type of bridge should be built there, what are the impacts to the floodway of the Carson River, and associated other elements associated with the project. The agreement authorizes CAMPO to go ahead and move forward with administering the STBG funds in coordination with an agreement with the Nevada Department of Transportation. Lyon County would be responsible for all local match associated with the project in the amount of $66,000, which is a 5% match on the STBG funds. Following approval of the agreement, staff will begin development and finalizing of our agreement with NDOT for the STBG funds. That agreement will be brought back to the CAMPO board at some point for approval. Upon completion of that, staff will develop a request for qualifications to select a consultant to actually do the actual feasibility study and coordinate with Lyon County and other stakeholders, community members in the region. So that's the purpose of the agreement. That's the scope of the project in general. Anything else? Happy to answer questions. Thank you.
I'll start. I guess we're at the early stages in this project that's been around for a while. So at some point, I would, make sure you get NDOT's input as well,
For
because
sure.
it's been studied several times. And depending on where you put it, there can be other complications. The flooding concern is one of my main ones, but you'll be working through the NEPA process sometime in the future. This is very early. So that's all I've got at this point. Any other questions or comments by board members?
Chair, if I can comment,
Oh, yeah.
we're just speaking on behalf of Lyon County. We're really thrilled to see this moving forward. We actually have a proposed development on that side of the river to finish the golf course development that's been going on for almost 30 years now. Proposed possibly 1,200 homes and more commercial development, hotel element. So the bridge will be an integral part of that development, just to have a secondary egress. So looking forward to this moving forward, and hopefully we have a bridge within 5 to 7 years, maybe. I don't know how fast it's going to move, but hopefully swiftly. Thank you.
Good. When I was reviewing this, it brought to mind a similar project down connecting Laughlin and Bullhead City across the Colorado River. This is a lot small, but it's more important to Lyon County. Okay, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will take a motion.
I think it's John's job. It's
I
a
would love to
pleasure.
do that, yeah. I move to approve the agreement as presented between Lyon County and CAMPO to authorize the transportation manager to execute the agreement as well as future amendments extending the term of the agreement.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay, that's approved unanimously as well. Thank you very much. Good luck with this one. All right, we're on to item 6D. I'll get the order here quick. Okay, for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding revisions to the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, policies and procedures. And I have a disclosure. One more.
Sorry. My nephew is still Chris Martinovich. He's the city staff presenter on this item. My disclosure and analysis from items 6B and 6C apply here as well. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his city service, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other Carson City resident. Therefore, I have no disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting.
All right, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The revisions to the CAMPO policies and procedures were necessitated by changes to federal DBE regulations. As such, we have updated our FTA procurement policies, which are included in Appendix C of the policies and procedures here, to better account for, one, how we're actually administering and monitoring DBEs, and two, to update some of our forms to be more consistent across what we're doing for the Federal Highway Administration and now similar for the Federal Transit Administration. Many of these forms we're using here are similar to those, if not identical to those we use on NDOT projects, which almost always require disadvantaged business enterprise or DBE activities and sub-consultants. So we've updated that to be more consistent with our forms. We've updated our policies and procedures to be consistent with new federal regulations, and they've all been documented in here. We also went ahead and put in a provision early in the document alluding to Commissioner Novak's point of federal regulations are changing and coming back every time federal regulations change to amend these policies. While I'm happy to do that, feels like it's a little bit cumbersome for the board, but we can do that. So I'll leave that up to you all if you'd like to make that that part of the motion or not. It was included as part of the amendments to administratively revise Appendix B and Appendix C, and then notify the board when those revisions have been made. So those are the revisions we've made in here, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, I like the bit about not coming back here every single time some minor thing changes, but informing us of it, for sure. Any
So-
other, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I want to say it in two different lights. Certainly, small administrative changes that don't impact programs, I don't have an issue with, but that's not what this says. This is giving you the ability to change Appendix B and Appendix C. I think it gives you carte blanche to amend Appendix B and Appendix C. I don't see it as limiting solely to implement a required federal change. So maybe just a little bit of language would satisfy me more here, because it just says with continued changes in federal regulation, it should say based on a change in federal regulation, you may do the amendment. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because otherwise you had carte blanche. Anything you wanted to change, you could have.
Yeah, I think
Understood.
the intent is
Yeah,
just
I
to
do too.
react,
Right.
right? You're
right.
not gonna dive into this if you don't have to. So,
So
That's
I could be comfortable if we changed it to based on a change in federal regulation.
I'm absolutely comfortable with that change as well. based on a change in federal regulations.
Yeah. And
Continue.
procurement procedures, then you can do the administrative work. If that makes,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Any public comments on this item? Okay. Hearing none, I will take a motion.
I move to approve the revisions to the CAMPO's policies and procedures as discussed on the record.
Thank you.
Second?
Second by Mr. Dotson. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to non-action items. Transportation Manager's Report. Mr. Martinovich, you have that one again?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. Wanted to note first, our new logo is attached in Exhibit 1. Comments we received at our last board meeting, we've took a little stab at it again, and this is the version we came up with, and we're going to be moving forward with beginning tonight and into new materials going forward. So this will be our new logo. It's just an update of our current one, paying kind of respect to the past one, and it has some different options as well, depending on the backgrounds. We'll have light versions and dark versions for different backgrounds, which is new. Other activities ongoing at the moment is our Regional Transportation Plan and Coordinated Human Services Plan survey. So that it is out for those who would like to take it and those who have taken it. Thank you. Please, you can find it on our website, carsonareampo.com. We did do a press release, and we're going to be doing some other social media and other types of outreach to get the word out. It'll be open for at least another month or so, so plenty of time for those to continue to take and provide us feedback on where we should go transportation-wise over the long term. Associated with that, we are continuing to coordinate with a variety of community participants and stakeholders who have a vested interest in the RTP. We're coordinating with meetings with NDOT, the tribal community, a variety of community organizations, both in Carson City, both in Carson City as well as in Lyon County and Douglas County. I've reached out to members of the Lyon County Commission. I know we've reached out to John as well from the Douglas County side. So lots of participation is anticipated over the next several months, and as we gain feedback and start to understand what are our needs, what are our priorities, and how do we get those into our plan going forward. So lots more to come on that. Yesterday, I attended the Nevada Transportation Conference. I spoke in the opening session related to specifically Carson City's funding, but also federal funding challenges that CAMPO, has experienced and is kind of anticipating going forward with some uncertainty and new federal regulations once the Infrastructure and Jobs Act expires at the end of fiscal 26, as well as fiscal 26 budgets and things like that. So looking forward to getting more clarity from the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration as where they're able to share it with us. It's super valuable. And I think it was a good conference. Appreciated NDOT's involvement. I know, Rebecca, you weren't there, but Scott Hine, the Assistant Director of Engineering, was there, and so I had some time to chat with him as well. Speaking of North Carson, it came up previously. We did release a request for proposals for the North Carson Street feasibility study, and we've selected a consultant, so we're into negotiation for that effort. The main effort at this point is a feasibility study looking at the North Carson Street corridor from William Street up to Medical Parkway. It's a very long corridor. It's the last major corridor that the city identified for a review and enhancement and upgrade following the completion of the freeway. That item will likely go to the RTC, the Regional Transportation Commission Board, rather than the CAMPO Board, given some of the funding and some of the priorities and focus on the Carson City area. But I wanted to give the CAMPO Board an update on that as portion of the funding does come from the Unified Planning Work Program. So I wanted to keep everybody in the loop on that. And that concludes my Transportation Manager's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess following the agenda at this point, we're on to item 7B. Are there other comments and reports? But I see we missed the annual NDOT or monthly NDOT input. So Rebecca, do you want to add some things at this point? You had your board meeting on Monday.
Yes, thank you. For those of you who did not see our board meeting, you can go back and re-look at it. But Monday, we had our transportation board meeting. I did give a non-action item presentation on our One Nevada plan. We have made a few changes, nothing really major on some of the percentages on our criteria. The criteria didn't really change. We had safety was bumped up a little bit. It's a number one priority for NDOT. And we're going to be going through and re-ranking our projects. And we're happy to bring a report back to CAMPO board, show you what we showed to the transportation board if you'd like. I'd like to maybe suggest that we can look at after we score and rank them, we'll be able to see if we had some changes. One thing I am really proud of is we've been working with a consultant when we first did a ranking, and then we did a test ranking where we took 10 projects with the new criteria and we did it internally, and then our consultant also scored them. And what we found is staff is much better aligned with what's going on with the projects, and internally we scored them better because we had more information. So we are moving away from the consultant to be helping us as much, and we're going to be doing that in-house and using our subject matter experts. So I'm really happy about that. The other thing I wanted to mention was Chairman Novak had sent me a email yesterday and was asking about the HSIP, which is our safety call for projects. And I know CAMPO put in a few of those applications. I checked with our safety team, and they have a group of different disciplined staff who are all evaluating those and scoring them. We're hoping to have them ranked with being able to come back and let everyone know how their project's ranked by, I'm going to say mid-June. So stand by, and hopefully that timeline sticks. You know, sometimes we have a good expectation and things change. So I'll keep you posted on that as well. I have a bridge inspection program update I'd like to share with you, and I'm happy to share that, as you may know, Nevada bridges have been ranked some of the nation's very best bridges, and a lot of that is due to our climate, and we're very lucky because our newer infrastructure compared to eastern states, it just helps us have really good bridges here. But I also wanted to recognize the work that NDOT has been doing from our inspection team, because our bridge inspection team impacts the majority of our bridges, including city and county maintained structures every 2 years. So bridges with more extensive deterioration are inspected more often. And while select newer bridges are inspected every 4 years. In April, we performed routine inspections over 7 I-80 bridges here in Carson City and 1 bridge over the Carson River. Tomorrow, May 15th, we will inspect the V&T Railway Bridge over US 50. So I was thinking that might be something that you guys were interested in. And in July, we will be performing routine inspections on US 395 bridges over the Carson River in Douglas County. When we inspect local bridges, we share the inspection report with the local agencies. The other topic, I have 3 topics. So the second topic is also daytime headlights. So effective July 2028, Nevada law will require headlights to be on at all times, including daytime, while driving on 2-lane rural highways in the state, and that is NRS 484D100. Law does not apply to 2-lane urban streets or highways with more than 1 lane in each direction. And this is a result of the legislation approved in 2023, which aimed at enhancing traffic safety and visibility on rural highways. We already have daytime headlight sections on certain sections, which you may know, which is, US 6 in Tonopah and then US 95 in Mineral County. Right now, our highway maintenance crews are installing or replacing more than 50 daytime headlight signs on US 50 and 6 in central Nevada. However, our Nevada traffic engineer staff are identifying and all additional sections under this daytime headlight
bill, and we will eventually be required based on the roadway type and proximity to the urban areas. So there is no 2-lane highways in Carson City metro area that apply to this law, but we will be evaluating State Route 28 on Tahoe's North Shore and US 395 in the Gardner and other 2-lane highways in our adjoining counties within these sign-in areas. So these signs will be installed on our highway maintenance staff. Will be doing the installations when there is time to do so. And like I said, it's not into effect until 2028. So just wanted to give you that update. And then the last update, we already heard a little bit about, but May is Bike Month. And I just want to say I appreciate all the bicycle and pedestrian safety education that Scott and his team do through the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program. Our own NDOT bicycle and pedestrian education staff have been very busy this month with sharing information and education, but they also do that every month. Beginning in July, we will be at the Carson Farmers Market once a month to provide bicycle and pedestrian safety outreach. And we have been posting bicycle and pedestrian safety awareness videos on our Nevada social media channels, so you may have been seeing some of those. And that concludes my report, so thank you.
Thank you. I think some of us have seen the news item about the V&T bridge inspection that's going to be going on, and that bridge is actually repurposed from Las Vegas. It used to be Union Pacific crossing Interstate 15. I hadn't heard anything. I don't know if Rebecca or the board members have anything, but the legislature's here and they're winding down. I don't know if there's anything that's passed or might pass affecting CAMPO, but from my experience, the last couple of weeks of the session, just about anything can happen. I noticed more jet planes flying in and out of Carson City, so it must be getting near the end. Any other comments on the legislature or anything else at this point? Okay. Any other board member comments or things to add?
So I think today we had some public comment that just in general was asking if CAMPO planning dollars could be used to plan for how we fix the roads in Carson City. And I might be slightly paraphrasing, but I think that's the gist of it. And so I thought it would be good just as a briefing for the public, because oftentimes we have new people tuning in, that you give just a brief overview of what CAMPO is doing and what the UPW is all about. I think that so that there's a good understanding of no or yes or, because it's Douglas County line. I think it would be helpful.
Thank you, Madam Member Bagwell. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. CAMPO's primary role is, regional transportation planning. It's primarily a planning agency. We receive what are called consolidated planning grant funds from the Federal Highway Administration, the Federal Transit Administration, that have some limited uses and what they can be used for. And CAMPO as an agency has some guidance as what it can and can't do. One of the things it can't do is design projects. That's not one of its functions. That's not one of its roles. It can assist agencies in helping to prioritize projects. It can assist agencies in helping to identify policies and procedures that it can put in to prioritize projects, implement safety-related projects, complete street element type projects, but it can't itself go and say on local roads, these are the projects, Carson City, you should be doing, and go and design those roads on behalf of any agency. So I think that's a high level that broadly answered the question. I think there's definitely an overlap into what CAMPO can assist agencies with, but in terms of selecting their projects, that's really best left up to the local agencies.
So let me kind of, if I may, put this slightly different or ask the question differently. So we currently on the RTC side have determined a priority and that we move it to different districts, 1 through 5, things like that. Can planning dollars be put to use to determine whether that's an effective methodology whether we should change how we designate dollars or how we prioritize?
I think what CAMPO can provide local agencies is guidance from other agencies' best practices. That could be as an example of NDOT's One Nevada process. We could provide and share detailed information of that methodology for project prioritization to local agencies. As an example. So I would be hesitant to say CAMPO is going to take on project prioritization or development of a project prioritization methodology for any local agency without, a robust conversation with that local agency, those boards, and as well as this board.
No, I really appreciate it because I think often, again, it's important that the public understand whose role is what. And I know sometimes that's difficult, even when you look at every fund, right? No, that money in that process is in that bucket and this one is in this bucket. So thank you.
Member Casanelli, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had a question for Member Capular. We had a bridge inspected in Old Town Dayton. It's been, 6 or more years ago. It was deemed unsafe. And I'm just wondering if where I could find out information on that bridge. It's on Shady Lane in Old Town. It's just a tiny little bridge, but it really affects when we're having our downtown events, trying to get some of those residents out without driving through the middle of our event. But I see they're doing some surveying. I'm just wondering if that's on the radar again for repairs or.
Thank you for the question. For the record, Rebecca Capular from NDOT. I will look into that and shoot you an email with our bridge folks and hook you up with the right people to get some answers. I unfortunately don't have that off the top of my head, but we can get you with the right people.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely.
Just to add to Mayor Bagwell's comment on the local and regional, we do spend money, CAMPO does spend money on the local roads now. For example, we include them in the pavement condition assessment that we did both in Carson as well as Douglas County. We include local roads in development of the local road safety plan, in development of our traffic signal, whatever 90-word plan that was called, where we prioritize the operations and the intelligent transportation system. So a lot of the pieces are there. And I think that's important just to acknowledge on the record.
I think the main concern is we've done quite a bit of the planning. We just need money for implementation.
Well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got lots of plans.
Yeah.
just
We
need
got
more
the
money.
plan.
Okay. All righty. We'll close that item and move on to our item 8, our final public comment opportunity. Do we have anyone who wants to speak up at this point? All right. On to item number 9 for possible action, adjourn. And we are hereby adjourned. RTC will start in
25 after.
25 after. All right, 5 minutes, it looks like.
Yeah, 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was like trying to make it even so people could find
Thank you.
it. RTC board meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Shudy,
Here.
Member Dodson, Commissioner Dodson, Commissioner Maloney,
Here.
Commissioner Novak.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. I'm on agenda item number 3, our opening public comment. Is there any public comment for the RTC? Mr. Costa.
Good afternoon, Mark Costa, Carson City resident. I was looking at some of the action items, 5B, 5C, and even 5D, where we're talking about various streets. Curry Street, we're apparently going to be using federal funds, Surface Transportation Block Grant funds. Interested in what the status of Curry Street is, if it's federal street or not. Hard to believe that it is, if it is a federal street, because it seems to be kind of small and, not as well traveled, but it could be, I guess, a collector street or an arterial if you're talking about Carson Street being a federal street, Curry Street being an access way to go ahead and get to that street. And also with Carmine, which is coming up, a presentation on that. And how that reconciles with our plan of working by district, a different district each year. I was talking with Kelly very briefly before the meeting kicked off, and I know that's being worked in terms of prioritization for District 3, but I was just wondering how those, projects reconcile with the strategy of operating or working on a particular district every 5 years. And I think that's one of the areas that I had in mind where maybe that needs to be revisited in terms of how we prioritize and how we work our projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Nope. Okay, then we're going to move on to agenda item 4, which is approval of the minutes of April 9th. Does any member have any changes? Nope. I'll accept a motion for approval, please.
Move to approve as presented.
I second.
I have a motion for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. We're now on to agenda item 5A, which is a action item on the District 1 Carmine Street project. Let me get to who's going to, Casey, you're going to take us through this item?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Casey Sylvester, Transportation and Traffic Engineer. Give me a second to get this up.
No problem. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Today, we're going to talk about alternatives analysis on Carmine Street for complete storm drainage solution and final roadway configuration. The location is east of I-580, north of US 50 and parallel to US 50. On Carmine Street between Lampa Lane and Airport Road, there's 2 parts to this analysis to find a complete drainage solution across the analyzed corridor and final roadway configuration. The city has funds for limited ADA improvements on this section of road of $503,000, and the plan is to take those improvements to construction. That $503,000 includes a community development block grant and stormwater funding. This section of road was identified in 2022 for rehabilitation. It was unable to be completed at that time due to a number of factors. There are stormwater improvements that are also critical to this corridor. In 2024, the city entered into an agreement with Loomis & Associates to scope the improvements for a complete drainage solution and roadway configuration, and to complete the 100% design for those CDBG ADA improvements. One thing to note is that part of the goal of that CDBG ADA project is to have that be compatible with the full build-out. Those analyses for roadway and drainage are complete. Final alternatives have been selected for each. The 30% plans have been developed that include both of those alternatives, so the complete drainage and the roadway in one plan set. The CDBG project is moving forward. Over the next couple of slides, we're going to look into that alternative analysis. So for storm drainage, we evaluated 3 alternatives. The alternatives had costs of around $2.5 million, plus or minus $150,000. The alternatives included Alternative 1, shown in the diagram with the blue arrow, which would use curb and gutter to collect stormwater across the corridor and convey all of it over to the existing NDOT I-580 system to the west. Alternative 2, shown with brown arrows, would convey some flows via an underground pipe system to the I-580 system, and the rest of the flows would be conveyed down Nichols Lane and then connect to NDOT's US 50 system. The third alternative would also split flows, with some flows going to the I-580 system via underground pipe, and the rest of the flows flowing to the east and collecting in a detention basin at the intersection with Airport Road, or on the other side of the intersection rather, and then from there would eventually work its way down Airport to the US 50 system. Alternative 1 was selected. This system was chosen because There were no right-of-way or easements associated with it, and because the I-580 system has the capacity to receive all of the water flows, and so it makes sense for us to provide facility of all of the water drainage on Carmine to that existing facility that has capacity for it. The initial estimate just for the drainage, the pipe and the associated curb and gutter and drainage inlets is $2.6 million. Just taking a little bit of a closer look here at the selected drainage outlet, as you can see, there are drainage inlets shown with the little blue squares and circles as shown on as needed across the corridor. Those convey the water to a primary pipe system that then flows to the west and connects in eventually to the I-580 system that's existing. For the roadway portion, we had a couple goals we wanted to meet. One was providing pedestrian and bike facilities. Another was to reconstruct the pavement as it was originally identified for in 2022. And we want to maintain some of the on-street parking. There's quite a bit of on-street parking in this area, and so it was our goal to be able to continue to provide that when the new facility. There are a couple different constraints here. There's inconsistent right-of-way widths, as you can see at the diagram here on the bottom. Different lots have different amounts of going out into the street, some going well into the pavement, others not reaching to the pavement, so that kind of creates a little bit of a challenge. There's unorganized shoulder parking currently, and that's not shown well in the pictures that are here, but there's many places where there's a dirt earthen shoulder and there's many cars parking next to each other, and so that creates a little bit of a challenge to be able to provide spaces in that area. And there's existing utilities, including overhead power through this corridor. All right, the final roadway alternative will rehabilitate the pavement. It will do some widening as needed to provide parking. You can see the complete concept in Exhibit 2. This should be included as a part of your packet. We're going to provide full curb and gutter both sides of the road, the length of the corridor. We're going to provide sidewalk and bike lanes on both sides of the corridor from Lampa Lane to Bunch Way. And then, so Bunch is the last intersection before you get to Airport heading east. And so between Bunch and Airport, we will provide sidewalk on the south side. So we'll have that one south side connectivity sidewalk all the way across. And for that final section where we're unable to maintain bike lanes, we will have a shared use of vehicles and bicycles. This alternative was also developed to work with the drainage alternative. The total cost of both the roadway and drainage together, because there's a little bit of overlap there, so we have the total cost, $5.7 million. The next steps is to move forward with the CDBG portion of the project. Per CDBG guidance, this is primarily going to be used for ADA improvements. This will incorporate elements of the alternative for roadway design. We're focusing on, as I said, ADA, so sidewalk, curb, and gutter. And these are our proposed portions of work for the CDBG portion of the project are shaded in Exhibit 2. So jumping down here, this is an excerpt from Exhibit 2. We have three different shaded colors: green, which indicates improvements that we're planning to proceed with; teal, which are improvements that we're planning to proceed with, however, they're outside of our right-of-way, and we have not yet had agreements with the landowner to do those improvements, and so that's pending. And then the yellow sections are improvements that we're planning on including, however, we need to do a little bit further investigation to ensure that we can do that without doing further hydraulic improvements on the roadway, or drainage, I mean. So in this case, we have existing sidewalk rehabilitation on the south side, and the portions that are outside of right-of-way are in teal, so those are pending. There's a little bit of a green here at the intersection, at the ramp, the curb ramp on the south east corner of Lampa Lane and Carmine. We plan on replacing that, those truncated domes. And then on the north side, we want to add additional new curb and gutter as part of the final drainage and final roadway configuration. And that will still need to be investigated. On another section of road, so the previous section was from Lampa to Pool, from Pool to Dory. We have a similar thing where we have some rehabilitation we want to do on the south side. It's outside of our right-of-way. We will continue working to develop an agreement for that with that landowner to be able to do that work inside of their right-of-way. We would like to do sidewalk work on the north side. That will need some further investigation. And then at the intersection with Dory on the southwest corner, we plan on replacing the curb ramp. I believe there's not currently a curb ramp there. We're gonna place one. And then in the final section that we'll be working on is from Dory to Bunch. We have some miscellaneous areas of existing sidewalk that we're going to remove and replace where the sidewalk is in poor repair. And that is the extent of the improvements that we're planning to do as part of the CDBG portion of the project. From here, our design schedule is to hit 60% in July, followed by 100% in August. Plan to advertise the project in September, with construction coming in spring of 2026 or maybe early winter of 2025. Are there any questions?
Just as a note for everyone, there was late material, just so that everybody recognizes and is looking at the same material. For 5A, we had late material, so I'd like to have the record reflect that we had 5A late material. Does any member have any questions, issues? Ms. Maloney?
Just a comment that this project is a great example of why roads are so expensive. And I'm pleased to see that you're moving forward on the right-of-way acquisition and cleanup on this road. We wouldn't want our limited taxpayer dollars going onto private property. And so that's why we don't spend our road dollars when we don't know that we own the road. And staff do a lot of work behind the scenes on this. So kudos, good job. Thank you.
One note to make on that is that we are not planning on doing acquisitions as part of this project. When we have full funding, perhaps that is an option to pursue. We are looking just for right of entry for the sidewalk repair. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, Casey, Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. We are talking with the property owner to see if we can do that work, if we can get that transferred over to us. That's still in the works, and no guarantees at this point.
Fantastic.
We won't do
Thank you.
work if we don't own
We
it.
won't do the
Right.
work if we don't own it.
Right.
Absolutely not.
That's the biggest thing. If we don't own it, we're not doing the work because, like you said, we don't have the dollars to do everything we want to do, but we're definitely not going to do it on private property. Right. Okay.
Casey,
Great.
a question. There's quite a bit going on, and with all the different colors and the phasings, I think most of us got a little confused on what's really going to happen and when. But it sounded like there is capacity in the NDOT freeway drainage system to handle this. Has NDOT agreed to that? Or that will be discussed at some point in the future?
To my knowledge, we have not entered discussions with NDOT about that. It is a discussion that will have to take place in the future.
May I jump in?
Yep.
Apologize, Mr. Novak. We have coordinated with NDOT. Loomis and Associates has been in touch with NDOT Hydraulics on a number of occasions, I believe, and we've gotten the verbal go-ahead that, yes, the system's large enough. Yes, the water's here going here already. So
And yes,
we'll-
they'll let us into it?
yes, they'll let us into it. The water's ending up in that system anyway. It's running down to getting into the Highway 50, so we're just catching it and putting it in the system slightly earlier than it already is. So it's really no change, and we've had those conversations with NDOT, yes.
And then following up, we still need to identify additional funding for the complete project, right?
Yes. we
That is
need
correct.
More funding to finish the entire project.
I'm sorry, yes, we need additional money. It's $5.7 million. We have 500,000. We need 10 times more money.
We're close.
Yeah, don't go to the casino and bet it, okay?
Yeah, there you go. Don't build a casino. That was
All right,
good.
thank you.
Okay. Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Dotson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Casey, just a question on the area that's shown as potential improvements for the first project. You talk about doing curb and gutter on that north side there, between Lampa and down to Pool, for example. The shaded area shows the area between the curb and gutter and then where the existing pavement is. you're not planning on doing any paving with this first project? You just put in the curb and gutter and the sidewalk in that part?
We are able to do limited paving as long as it's related to the work, and because the roadway profile is narrower here with the existing earthen shoulder, it would be required to do some paving in order to get the sidewalk in.
So would the drainage in that area, the DIs in that area, you would drain that to the storm drain as part of the first project?
Unfortunately, we do not have funding to be able to provide the storm drain up to that point to be able to do that, and that's part of what is sort of to be determined on this section of improvement, to figure out what, if any, drainage impacts there would be to us adding this, and what we're able to do while still being compatible with the full project.
Commissioner Dotson? One of the tasks we've asked our consultant Loomis to do is to assess if we were to build these sections in yellow, what does that mean for drainage? We're fairly confident that while we're not going to be able to pick up the drainage in a pipe at these locations in the short term, we're fairly confident that the water that would come down and flow in these sections can be conveyed to the existing storm drain system, particularly the system there at Lampa and Carmine. There's a drop inlet there near the intersection. We're going to look at how to vertically grade all that so that we're not going to create a puddle or create a low spot. And if we do, how do we accommodate that? Where does the water going to go? That's one of the things, those detailed grading analysis is part of that step that we just haven't gotten to yet, and we won't until we get that figured out. But looking at the topography, looking at the way things drain, we're fairly confident that those areas in yellow will drain even without the proposed storm drain improvements. And then when we come back eventually and put those in, it'll drain even better.
But it won't make it worse on Carmine.
Correct.
If my memory brings me back, Carmine has, several issues, but one of the most important things we were trying to accomplish on Carmine is there is a group of homes that are flooded out constantly. And they're having to dry out their homes and get flooded again and dry out their homes. And so I just want to make sure that nothing we're doing here is going to exasperate the drainage, right? We're trying to solve a problem. I don't want to create one.
We totally agree with that. And if we find that, this is going to cause a low spot or a puddle and we're going to not let the water go from where it was going, then we're just going to wait until that storm drain system can be constructed.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's not our objective is to go, oh, that got worse. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Is there any public comment on this item? I think there was a general question on Carmine and where it really fits within our transportation districts, and maybe just a small explanation is when you look back at this, again, we got to it in two different ways, right? So first it was a priority in the storm water. When we looked at, my memory serves me, we had 10 projects or something that we were looking at in the storm water to try and accomplish when we did the rate hikes in stormwater years ago. We prioritized things, and this really is a bad area for flooding, right? And so it prioritized towards the top of that issue. And then you look at the ADA and the others for where it fit in the transportation rulings of we're in District 1, 2, 3. And so it's using a combination of dollars from many avenues, but the project has stalled in the fact that it is so expensive and it's not a clear, easy road to redesign, because as you look at it, you can, I think you showed on the one where this property owner goes all the way into practically the middle of the road, right? And then the next guy's down here. So we don't even have an easy pathway on the road to say, yay, I can just go in there and asphalt it and we're going to have there's a lot of odd issues And I think that comes because that was the new Empire area and it's super old and the right of ways and alignments I don't think have ever been done. That I could be guessing wrong, but that's really a lot of the why and why is it taking so long and why it's a priority. For me, it's about the flooding. The most important thing to me is we've got to do something to work on that. So
Do we have an idea on the appetite of the neighborhood to align?
that's interesting.
We do need to do some outreach to the neighborhood. We haven't started that yet. So I don't know that I have a good answer for you at this point.
I think potentially that's the next step,
I
right?
think so.
Because again, we can't just,
Yeah, if they're not interested in working with the city, I mean, it kind of, we need a plan B, a very different plan B in that case.
Right.
If there's a way forward.
anybody else? Ms. Maloney?
And just because it hasn't been stated strongly in this meeting, the city has invested significantly into the Carson City MAC and just the community in general into the Boys and Girls Club. And this is a very heavily used pedestrian corridor. And so it ranks high in addition to the stormwater
Right,
for the multimodal.
right. So an important one. Okay, any public comment? Nope, we can bring it back up here for a motion then. Ms. Maloney?
I was going to skip it. It was very long.
I
Okay.
know.
I move to approve the recommended stormwater and roadway design alternatives and to direct staff to proceed with the design and construction of the recommended ADA curb ramp and sidewalk improvements for the project.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5B, discussion and possible action on a DOT contract to partially fund Curry Street. And Chris, or are you going to do this, Casey? That's Chris's name, but we're going to change it to Casey. All right, you're up. Let's talk a little bit again of how did we get to Curry Street? Why was Curry Street a pick? You know, I think whenever we can try to answer public comment or questions, and again, these are years ago, but it makes it difficult for them to understand because we're here today, right? And so they're like, well, what are you doing on Curry Street? And why'd you pick Curry instead of Carson Street or instead of this street or that street? And so what was significant about Curry Street that, and it might have to be Chris or it might be me, but that's okay. I can wing this one too, but why Curry Street?
Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager, and I know I don't want to put Casey on the spot on this one.
Yeah.
He wasn't here at the time.
Reach
Curry
back
Street
into your
was
memory.
Curry Street was identified in a number of ways. It was identified first as part of the District 4 project prioritization process. We looked at a larger section of Curry Street, and we narrowed that down due to funding constraints, and we only ended up preserving the portion of Curry Street from the Forest Service parcel up to 10th Street. And so that was where it was first kind of brought up into the discussion. And it was brought up into that discussion as a result of a parallel route assessment that was funded through the Redevelopment Authority for looking at routes adjacent to Carson Street, which was including Curry Street and Silver Sage. And so kind of rose to the radar there where we've got Carson Street, we've got these parallel routes, there's some needs out there. We looked at it at District 4, prioritized it, ran out of funding, limited it down. Then late in 2023, an opportunity presented itself for the congressionally designated spending or the earmark money. And so we had looked at this project, we had some, background associated with it and thought this would be a good one to put in for that grant request for those earmark funds. And so we were fortunate enough to receive that. And so it'll take the full 5-year rotation before we get to construction on this. But this is a complicated project. As was noted, there's a lot of federal property adjacent to this that we'll work through, including the Forest Service and state lands. And so it takes time to do that. But that's the basic history of the Curry Street project.
I think probably that's the most difficult issue, is to recognize that we have obligated a project and that how many years it has to move forward. And you're like, well, why are you doing Transportation District 4, Mayor? You're supposed to be in 3. Why are you still in 4? And it's like, no, it really was in 4 that we obligated
Take
this.
some time.
And just working through all of the issues, which I think one of the things we did as a commission here is to recognize that it was good to even be ahead. Where it used to be in the old days, you waited till you got the money, then you picked your roads, where now we're running in the upfront piece to already say where we're going for the next transportation district, because we've already recognized the first year is practically non-existent. It's really a lot of planning and design and stuff, but there's not going to be any construction. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We're trying to, and then just recognizing that some of these projects are just so complex, especially ones that have multiple partners in the project, right? And so that's where, it's not just us in control. We need somebody else to say yes and somebody else to say yes. And while we got the 2.6 million from the feds to help us, I'm going to bet that cost us 13, 14 months in the project, but it did get us 2.6 million. So is delay better? And hopefully the cost did not increase more than the 2.6 million, right? So that's the little edge all the time as to what we're doing is, I thought they were going to be faster. But I think they went to something new and then, we need a few rules around all this. So
Good.
things didn't move as fast, but
We didn't mention it yet, but this segment of Curry Street also came out on the local road safety plan.
yes, it was in that
We're,
too.
investigating all sorts of funding opportunities. So
Mhm.
this is the next step.
Mm-hmm. And so I think for the public, though, it's important to recognize we're looking for any funding sources and any planning and any dollars that we can grow our own money and get a better project, right? That's what we're aiming at. And so sometimes we can do it and sometimes we can't, but that becomes the large discussion point about local road versus an arterial or versus a collector road. This is not, I think there was another question, but this is not a federal road. Curry Street's not a federal road.
It's a local-owned road. It is classified as a collector.
Collector, right, but it's not federal, right? Do we have any federally owned in Carson City itself?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but there may be some associated with the tribal colonies. I'd have to look into that.
Yeah, okay. All right, so any public comment? No? Okay. Motion, please. You gonna do that one, Lisa? Okay.
I move to approve the agreement as presented and to authorize the transportation manager to execute the agreement as well as any future amendments to the agreement regarding extensions of time or changes in funding that do not increase the total amount by more than 10%.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. Okay, we're on agenda item 5C, discussion and possible action for a contract with Loomis and Associates for the design and construction support. Casey? Is there anything you want to share about this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Casey Sylvester, Transportation and Traffic Engineer. And I just want to note, this is the same project as we discussed in the previous item. This is to award design services. This design services contract will be using the STBG funding that we discussed on the previous item. And I think that's all. Have any questions?
And when will this get done, the design?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Let's see, fall of '26.
I believe that is correct, yes. Design completed by fall of 2026.
Fall meaning like September, October, November? What do we mean by that? I'm just kind of, again, gauging, we're not even going to have the design piece done till, what do we have in the contract? How long do they have to get this done? It's your contract. You
Sorry,
got it.
Dean, not looking at you.
Yeah.
Can I have a project manager when? November.
Oh, okay. I call that winter. I guess maybe that's why I was like, wait, this says, fall. I kind of think November's winter time, but okay. So November of '26. So a year and a half from now, even to have, is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
It's a big project.
You know, I'm gonna put Mr. Stuckey on the record since he used to work for us. You're gonna like it. You guys are gonna like this. He's gonna go, darn. No. Can you do this any faster?
Dan Stuckey with Loomis and Associates for the record. It's a complicated project. So there's a lot of, we're obviously like geotech work initially. There's significant amount of environmental work. We're working with the city on some alternatives analysis planning at the beginning before we kind of settle in on kind of the real project moving forward of how it's going to look. So some of that stuff takes a lot up front to get it right by the time we get into design. And then I think we're pretty aggressive. I mean, we've had a lot of interaction with the city trying to be, I know personally that this project has been talked about for a long time and people are waiting for this one to get done. So we're going to work as hard and as fast as we can to do it. But it's not an easy, straightforward project at the same time.
We have a couple of bummer design ones here. 2 in a row. There you go. Okay, anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I
Mr.
saw
Stuckey?
the scope of work in here, and it's thorough. There's a lot to cover. Like you mentioned, it's not a simple project, but it sounds like you'll be probably cutting into the hillside and getting some type of retaining wall. There's lots of wall designs options, and I think you also have a couple of sub-consultants helping you out on landscaping and environmental analysis. So, yeah.
Yes, there'll
We
be.
threw it all in.
Yeah, there will be a wall of some sort on this project, just with the limited area to widen the road and all that. So there's also overhead electric. So we have an electrical engineer that's going to work with NV Energy on relocating that distribution line and such to make the road fit. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Like I mentioned, the environmental, there is landscape aesthetics with it. So a lot.
Do we have an expiration on the congressionally designated funding that we have to have it spent by?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know of a date off the top of my head. Other federal programs, for instance, our Federal Transit Administration has a 5-year, once it's obligated, a 5-year spend down type window. And so there may be something. Other projects that we have with congressionally designated spending, for instance, our vulnerable user project doesn't have a deadline. So we can confirm that to make sure, but I think it's going to be beyond the limits of what we're talking about as part of this project.
I just want to state on the record if there's, it has many sources, so be sure and if possible, spend, and I know you would anyway, but let's just put that on the record because there's a lot of movement federally going on right now about considering taking dollars back. And my concern is they're going to say, oh, well, that dollar's been obligated for 2 years and you haven't spent it, so we're going to claw it back. So just want to put that on the record that if necessary, grab those optional ones and spend them first.
And I will note that this money for the congressionally designated spending is not technically obligated. We have to complete the environmental review to get the money obligated. We're just been awarded the funding and the agreement's pending the completion of the environmental.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Thank you, Dan. Sorry to put you on the spot. I'm like, gosh, I want a friend. We'll do it for you. Okay, no public comment? I'll bring it back up here for a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Novak.
I move to approve the contract as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Okay, we're going to move to 5D. This is discussion and possible action on an agreement with Nevada Department of Transportation for a District 2 Little Lane rehab project. Casey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Casey Sylvester, Transportation and Traffic Engineer. This project is for an existing project on Little Lane where we're doing some rehabilitation. We have reached out to NDOT about using STBG funds that are awarded to Carson City on this project. So we're going to use $500,000 for construction only. The project is already in design. I believe we're at 90% review right now. And so with the $500,000 in transportation block grant funding, we'll have to have an additional we'll have to provide 5% in local funding as match. That comes out to $26,316. With this additional funding, our total construction budget is $1,419,000 for the project. Are there any questions?
Does any member have a question? So I do, and I know and you might not be ready for it, but I'm trying to, again, kind of get my memory together on Little Lane. Little Lane had quite a few housing projects that were added. And so I'm trying to put a frame of reference that one of the things we often do is half-street improvements. And so is this another a half that we're doing that wasn't done by the projects? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, they did their half, this is our half, or
When we did our
They did
District
nothing?
2 pavement prioritization process, this road did come up as needing to be addressed, even with the half-street improvements that were completed. Now with the half-streets and the apartments being slightly offset from each other, you have half of this street done in this segment, and you have another half of it down over there. It's the other side half. And so it's a little bit kind of a disjointed group. So we're going to go in, and we're aware of the work that's been done already. And so in places where there was no work done, we'll be doing full depth rehabilitation. Places where they have done work, we're going to be doing resurfacing with a slurry seal. Is that right, Chris? And so we are working around the work that's already been done. We're not redoing work that they've already done. And we are going to have a uniform surface when it's done, and we'll be able to go back in and stripe it uniformly all the way across.
so some of that is already needs slurry seal? I guess the time has gone by a lot faster than.
Yeah,
I'm
portion of
thinking,
it.
right? Like, when did those get
Casey's
done?
exactly right, and that there's a bunch of different developments that have gone on. To your point, Madam Chair, is that there's a portion of Little Lane along closer to the Solomon side that was fully widened and reconstructed. That's just preservation. We're going to seal that with a surface treatment. It's right at that cusp of needing, right? Let's preserve it. Let's keep it good. Keep our good roads good. As we get closer, particularly in the post office area, there's been no development along the post office. Those apartments have been there a while, and that road is quite terrible, I'll say right there. So that's the area of reconstruction. And so that's sort of the balance where we're reconstructing a portion of it, we're preserving the newer portions of it.
Perfect. Anybody else have any?
But I will have
Mr.
consistent
Dotson?
striping.
That's an improvement. Mr. Dotson?
Thank you. I was just curious, there's a couple of statements in here that talks about the design for the project not being eligible for the funding. What's the reason for that?
So we have already entered design on this project, and if I'm remembering correctly, well, hold on, Chris, can you jump in on this one?
Sure thing, Casey, no problem. We awarded a design contract to Dowell maybe close to a year ago now for the design of this, before we identified this project for federal funds. If you recall, Commissioner Dotson, as well as others, we came back to the board where we realized we had additional STBG funds that were available to Carson City following Douglas County not using their STBG funds in the time that they thought. So we reevaluated all our projects and reprioritized and saw that these for Carson City could be eligible. And by that time, we had already awarded a design contract. We had procured our design consultant, not following our federal procurement processes. We just followed our local processes. And so therefore, we couldn't go back and use federal funds to pay for that consultant. So that's the reason the design's not eligible, but construction remains so.
And we needed it all anyway. It didn't really matter that we didn't
We-
get
we-
it for,
Well, we are planning, we hope to be able to take off 100 or 200,000 of local dollars and replace them. So we're holding on to that as a little contingency. So fingers crossed.
And then Casey, it looks like you will be looking on doing work at the Roop Street signalized intersection as well, right? It's not all just pavement on Little Lane.
That is correct. We're going to be adding loop detectors in, and we had scoped out and talked about doing some additional signal work beyond that as well, changing out signal heads, provide for flashing yellow arrow and things like that. It looks like we ended up deciding not to go in that direction, and so the signal work is a little bit more limited. It's mostly just loop detectors. We'll be running some new pole boxes, running some new lines of wire, but, all related to those loop detectors.
Hope you don't have to deal directly with the Postal Service, because that does not speed up a project.
just what we got done talking about, when you need another partner, it's not so easy.
Yep. Well, good luck.
Yeah, just delays everything. Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Nope. Okay, I'll accept a motion. Greg, you want to do that one?
Sure. I move to approve the agreement as presented and to authorize the transportation manager to execute the agreement, as well as any future amendments to the agreement regarding extensions of time or changes in funding that do not increase the total amount by more than 10%.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Casey. That's the most you've ever had to talk, huh? Yeah, it's scary. There you go. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 6A, which is the transportation manager's report. Do you have anything to highlight or share with us on this item?
I have two items. Thank you, Madam Chair. Two items to note. Transportation Manager Chris Martinovich, that's me. Sorry.
Yeah, that was.
First item I wanted to note was that we received approval from the Federal Highway Administration to execute our RAISE grant for the William Street project. So Federal Highways has bought off on that, and Darren Anderson, our project manager, is continuing to finalize that. We do have to do an amendment to that agreement to adjust the funding, but that is anticipated to go relatively smoothly based on everything we've heard from Federal Highways. So that project is well on its way to reconstruct William Street. Our other big task that staff is doing this particular month for discussion at the June meeting is our project prioritization efforts for District 3. We are looking at a number of roads, including local roads, for prioritization. We have the budgets. We know what our fiscal year 26 budgets are, and we'll be looking at those roads and scoping out those projects. I'm also planning on bringing an update to the pavement deterioration curves following the CAMPO Pavement Condition Index survey. And so we've done some new modeling and some new projections, and we'll bring that forward as well, just to give this board an update on what our roads look like going forward following that condition assessment survey. So those are two items definitely for June coming up that I think will be as of interest and good discussion. I think we have a few other items, but I don't have them off the top of my head here. So those are the two items I wanted to note. I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 6B. Does anybody have anything in the street operations they want to highlight or
I did include a new report here. This is the control systems report. When we get to the fiscal year, those columns will be added and updated. I'm not going back in time and trying to figure that out right now, as the report's just running on a month-by-month basis. So what this shows here for the benefit of everybody is that these are activities completed by our control systems team, which do traffic signals, rapid rectangular flashing beacons, things like that, those electronic control systems that are out in our area. We are responsible through a variety of agreements to maintain not only Carson City signals, but also signals on NDOT's roads, signals in Lyon County, signals in Douglas County, and signals and equipment in Story County. So our staff, 3 staff plus our control systems manager, maintain and repair all those elements. So you can see in the month of March, we'll align this with the street operations report. So it's March we're talking about. There were 159 work orders created, 253 work orders completed, and a total of 119 work orders that were ongoing. So there's work orders that began in a month that continue for a couple of months. So that's why there's higher numbers of completed than created. 219 of those work orders were planned, as in we had to go out, we had a planned maintenance schedule. We versus recurring, we do this all the time. 34 of those work orders were unplanned, which could be anything from an equipment failure to a crash that takes out whatever it takes out. Activities by county are listed there as well. 35 in Douglas, 5 in Lyon, none in Story this month, and 213 work orders in Carson City. So we plan to update this and bring this forward just as another element of crews and work that we do at Public Works that affects, transportation.
I think it's a great report, and I think it again highlights where people think every dollar that we have can be put into the pothole. And it's like, well, let's look at this, and so I think more information is always better, right? That the public can see that, well, I don't know about any of you, but I want my stoplights working, right? And so even the 34 unplanned and repair, the community's not going to tolerate a blinking red for very long, right?
Right.
They expect somebody to get out there and fix that light. So, oh, yeah, and they start going anyway. Yeah, revert back to the 4 stop sign rule, if you can remember what to do. Yeah, everybody on the right. But I really appreciate this, and so thank you for that addition. It's a great job.
Yeah, this is something I had asked for some time ago, and I know it took a while, but I think it's important, and especially most of the signal work directly impacts safety.
Absolutely.
So that's, one of our main concerns, and people need to understand we do everything for
Yeah.
transportation. And there's nothing they have to respond to at roundabouts, right? So those are a
Is that
cheaper
your plug
alternative.
for more roundabouts?
I guess it is.
I thought that was, I thought I heard that rattling around.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move to 6C, which is just, does any members or anybody have anything else to share? Miss Maloney?
If you'll allow me, Mayor, Madam Chair, I'd like to get on a soapbox for just a moment. We heard tonight on multiple items about complex projects, increasing cost, extending time. And then we heard about Little Lane. And there was a time when I was younger and Chris was younger, and the two of us were very excited about looking at developer contributions to Carson City roads. And I think in looking at tonight's project on Little Lane, we see that we are moving forward on design, and we're trying to honor the investment that those developers have made to that road. But the reality is that whether we can calculate it or not, those developments are making the city's project more complex and consequently more expensive, even though we can't measure how much more expensive, even if it's incremental. And if we think about the developer's project, they had to take time to design their portions of the road, which increased their cost and their time and made their projects more expensive, which then necessarily increased the cost of the resulting housing. When we're thinking about rising housing costs in Carson City, these things matter. I would love when Chris and his team have time to revisit the developer contributions project and try to find a way to potentially pool developer contributions such that the city can use those contributions as local match to bring in more federal grants and reduce the burden on our tax dollars. And so I will now get off my soapbox, but it's a project that's important to me, and when we get time, I think we should revisit. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else? On the report, we did get some things on sales tax today, but I just want to draw attention so that people are recognizing. So if you look at the November basic city county relief tax, and you see we only got 152,000, and you can well see that's way below normal. We got some reports today to try and start matching things up, and it's still not working. So just want to let you know that I don't know where the history here is going to fall out in the money by the time the fiscal year ends, but some reports or some things are showing us of sales tax losses of, 6, 10, and 11%. Well, that's going to fall to this too, because we do use sales tax, a 0.25% of that sales tax uses for our roads. So if we're declining in sales tax, it includes that too. So I just point that out and hope that when they get the new sales tax system working properly, we get a cash infusion instead of a cash reduction. But anyway, just so everyone's aware, that's a problem. And then I also appreciate, you're looking at, dollars that we do have, as Ms. Maloney was just talking about developer contributions for the public, in case they're not understanding the discussion, is on page 214 of our packet, but that shows you dollars that are out there that developers contributed to projects. And so we can always look at the agreements to determine if any changes are needed, because mostly one of the components in there was, we have to do it within 10 years, that we can keep their money for 10 years, right? Or we have to give it back if we don't do a road. So, maybe at some point we do look at those templates and those agreements to determine if we have it all right. It's always good to relook, so. Okay, then anything else? No? Okay, then we'll go to final public comment. Is there any public comment? It's good to see you, Dan. Okay, no public comment? Okay, then we are on to adjournment. And thank you all for a good meeting.